Well, welcome. I am so excited. What's going to be taking place in the next few minutes is going to be just incredible. You're going to be hearing a story from a young man that I met probably when he was about 13 years old and joined our ministry back then. And his story is simply incredible. In fact, we've been talking here, just setting up our microphones and getting ready to start for the last 30 minutes easily. And I am just blown away. Get ready, put your seatbelt on. This is going to be powerful. So I'm going to introduce to you my friend that like I've said, I've known him since he was a young man. His name is Lazaro or Tony, amen, Bernard. And he can go by either one of those, right? You feel more comfortable with any one of those?
Thank you so much. Thank you, son. Glad to be on the program. I think what you're doing is great. Mm-hmm. You know, I go by many names, but Laz is fine by me. You know what I mean? But I'm very happy to be here, and I see that you're doing some great things, not just for me, but for, you know, the youth out there. You know?
Well, this is part of it. So your story is going to help a lot of people because there's a lot of people out there that are suffering from some of the things that you've gone through, and a lot of them, a lot of this has to do with gangs.
Okay.
And a lot of them believe there's no way out, and your story is simply a testimony of the miracle of God. So I'd like to get back to, I guess, when we first met, that you were about 13 when you came to Miami, although I know...
A little bit older, a little bit around 14
maybe?
15 years old is when I came about. Yeah, I came from, I was born here in Miami, Florida.
305, right?
Yeah, all day, every day.
Okay.
And, you know, I was one of those guys that was dealt a crappy hand from the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, from the moment I was born, just crappy hands, and there's a lot going on there, and I can go on for hours. As a result of that, with things that are going on, I was living in New York, and I lived several years in New York. And coming back from New York is where I met Pastor MC or Mario or whatever you want to call yourself. Yeah. Okay.
I go by many names.
And that's where, you know, I received Christ for the first time, which was definitely not only life-changing, but also a challenge, you know, because, you know, trying to keep our salvation, you know, is hard enough with the world and the way it's going, with the way the world is. So, you know, I thank God that he put you in my life and that you were a cornerstone of me, allowing me to have access to tools that I need to help me, you know, get ahead. So
Well, it didn't start off that easy, though, because you got to church, and I remember that you gave a little bit of a hard time at the beginning.
I don't want to be there.
And your mom asked me, you know, to see if I could befriend you and see if we can. And so I started working. Tell us a little bit about, you know, how you got to New York, or maybe why you got there and why you ended up coming back.
Well, I just have to say, I'm sorry. It's my first time ever doing a podcast. So, you know, this is all new to me.
Well, it's real. That's what
I don't know where to start and where to end. As far as that's concerned, when I was in New York, I was involved in a lot of gang activity. You know what I mean? Up and down all over the boroughs. I was also a kid runaway. You know, I lived on the streets of New York from anywhere from Brooklyn to Manhattan to Queens, up and down. You know, I used to run abandoned buildings. You know, sleeping on the train from the ages of like 12 to like 15. After that, that's when I came back to Miami and I met you. But when I was in New York, you know, going through what I was going through, I had an opportunity to come back to Miami through my mom now. Her name's Norma. Okay, if it wasn't for her, I don't think I would be where I'm at right now. She did everything in her power to get me from New York to here. And when she brought me here back to Miami, I was still in that mentality of how I was going to get out, how I was going to make the next dollar, how I was going to do what I wanted to do, being that I believe that no one had anything for me or cared for me at all. So she took me to the church, and that's when, you know, we ran the first church over there in Hialeah, El Shaddai, I think it was.
Yeah, El Shaddai.
And it was a little like in a shopping center.
Yeah, it was a hole in the wall.
Yeah. Actually, no, it was the one in, I don't know, it was two of them because we moved.
We had a smaller one, then we outgrew that and moved to a bigger one.
But I think that we started out in that first one, and that's where, you know, I met Mario, and that's when he started working with me, and I started understanding, and that's when I broke and I gave my life to Christ, you know, at that point. But it was a struggle, you know, because even after, I was still jumping back in and out of the gangs. You know what I mean? And, you know, what can I say?
The gang had a presence here.
Yes.
The same one in New York.
Absolutely.
Had a presence here.
Absolutely.
It's an international gang.
Right.
That basically is blood in, blood out.
Absolutely.
No way out.
Right. And they consider themselves to be a family, an association, a nation, you know, which ties into a lot of the other bigger gangs, you know, Bloods, Crips, etc. Those weren't the gangs that I were in, but we were associated with bigger gangs as well, you know, and we had beef across the nation, you know, with different things that were going on. So, but it was far reach, all the way from New York to Miami, you know, and through the help of Mario and some of his tools, I was able to get out, and of course with the help of my own family, you know, Norma and, you know, Tony, which are my grandfather, my step grandfather. And you know, I thank God to be where I am today, you know, live and breathing. You know?
Yeah, no, definitely. We just talked to your mom.
Right.
You FaceTimed with her right before we came on here. I hadn't seen her in a little bit, although, you know, on social media, we always comment on each other's posts or whatnot. And I heard she moved out of Miami. She was just telling me about that. But she's a beautiful person and married to an amazing man that I actually did their wedding. And I just found out it's been 30 years. I couldn't believe it. But yeah, Tony is, I don't know if he's still working in the prisons.
Well, he's right now, he's retired. He's still working with the churches. You know, he was back then he was a
chaplain.
He was a chaplain and a deacon, and he would work with you, and he would have access to the prisons and the stockade down here in South Florida.
Everybody in prison ministry in Miami knows who he is.
Right.
Everybody.
He used to work all the way from the South Florida reception, all the way through. So
yeah, then you got your grandmother, obviously, that I know very well too.
Yes, my abuela Abi.
Yeah, that's how everybody calls her. Let's go back maybe to your childhood, if that's okay. I mean, if you feel uncomfortable talking about anything, let me know. Your father goes to prison.
Right.
I mean, since I met you, he was locked up. Well, he's still locked up. Yeah. And he was locked up way before I met you. So supposedly never getting out of prison. Is that right? Unless something happens.
Yeah. I mean, my father was originally from Cuba. Okay. And when he came back in the 70s, late 60s, maybe 70s, when he was like 16 years old, he moved over to Chicago when he came from Cuba. And that's where, you know, he started in his gang activity back in the day. And then he moved to Miami, and that's where he started his, that's where he started his life of crime here. You know what I mean? And then he started doing his thing, and then he was in and out of prison, et cetera. But this last time he got caught, and I was around 12 years old, and he went in, and now he's in prison for life. And he's still in there as we speak, and I'm 46 years old. So yeah,
that's, I don't know, 28 years or more?
Yeah, probably. And he's still counting, you know. He's still in there.
No, I'm sorry, closer to 40 years that he's been in.
Well, yeah, I mean, being that
36.
Well, I'm 46. So he's been there since I was like before 12 years old. Yeah. Since before you and I
34
Before
years.
you and I met, he was in prison. You know what I mean? And he appeals every day, whatever, but he's not getting out because, you know, he did a few things, you know.
While being inside. So this leaves you without a father.
Right.
He had taken you away from your biological mother, correct?
From what I understand, yeah. He took me and my sister away, or he scared my mom away, etc. Well, it's her fault. She decided never to come back. You know what I mean? Back from when I was in Pampers. And so this woman, Norma, adopts you. Yeah, she did. Basically she adopted me. She was real young. You know, I'm going to let her tell that story. Yeah. Because I really don't know what went on. And, you know, I'm not the one to tell. Yeah, she'll talk to you.
Yeah.
She'll tell you what happened during that time. But and in my eyes, ever since I was born, she's always been my mom. You know, but you know, drugs and things that were going on during that time, you know, consumed her and the people around her as well. You know, which left me with my grandmother. You know, and my abusive uncles who used to abuse me and my sister all the time. You know what I mean? And then things got tough. And while being there, you know, not wanting to be home, my grandmother actually, I believe my grandmother knew what was going on. She would push us out from a very young age to be out of the street so that we're not around that environment. So when my uncles used to come around, she used to say, go, 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 get out, you know?
Double-edged sword, because now you're out in the street.
Right. And that was going since the age of 7. Since I can remember before I even started school. So, and you know, I was either next door or down the block or in another neighborhood from the age of 7. Always ran by myself, you know, and no one could ever find out. The real question was, where's Laz today? Where's Tony today? You know, and nobody could ever find me. And that grew, and I learned about the street at a very young age from that point. And during the age of that, between the age of 7 until the age of like 12, I was already breaking into cars, you know, robbing things that I can find, running with the wrong crowd, smoking weed, etc. You know, I mean, I thank God that even my uncles who were crackheads, I never touched that stuff. You know what I mean? I never took it in. Did I sell it? That's a whole other ball game, you know? But I never, God protected me from that. I always saw the way they used to treat me, and I said, I didn't want to be like that. So I never did, I disliked the usage of drugs for myself, but I always tried to push it on somebody else to try to make $1. So from that age, I was a corner boy here in Miami, you know what I mean? Or I would steal a car or whatever, chop, etc. You know? But this last time that I did, like I was talking to Pastor MC about my last situation here. I got into a very bad car accident in a stolen vehicle, and the next day my grandmother sends me to New York.
That's how you ended up in New York.
That's how I ended up in New York, and I was about 12, and I had no idea that she knew anything, whatever. From one day to another, she just put me on a Greyhound and sent me to New York to go live with some lady my dad was associated with before he went to prison. You know.
So here you are. You're 12 years old. You're you have really, I mean, no family.
No.
Not close to you, at least. Your mom is gone because your dad got rid of her. Your dad is locked up in prison. And you're 12 years old and you're in this new city, New York City, huge city, with a lot going on.
Brooklyn.
Yeah. During those years, New York City, crime-wise, was terrible.
Oh, absolutely.
I think Miami and New York were actually the worst cities in the country, crime-wise, which that has changed. You know, Miami's like maybe 30th now.
Yeah, I heard they cleaned up in New York too.
Yeah, New York has gone way down, but you're in New York in some really bad years,
right?
Where people are still shooting heroin,
right?
And crack now has come on the scene,
right? Back
and
on,
is destroying the city here and there, and you find yourself alone. And you know, obviously, I don't want to say this as a cliche, but you looked for family,
right?
And you know what happened was that you joined this association, I would imagine. And I'll let you tell that part, because you felt that you finally found someone that cared for you, that gave you maybe a place to live, that was stable, helped you make some money, correct?
Right.
And probably the Latino pride part of it had to come in. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
So, being that my grandmother was getting old and on the rise, of course, my dad was still in prison, still didn't have a mother figure, etc. My grandmother, apparently my dad, before he went to prison, he had married some woman. Or had was associated with some woman who actually lived in New York. So my grandmother said, "Hey, look, these are your kids. They're your responsibility to get us away from her sons that were abusive to us." She pawned us off to New York. So now when I meet this new family, I'm in this weird place. I'm having a culture shock because I'm used to open spaces. You know what I mean? I'm used to playing football on grass and going to school and big cafeterias and stuff like that. Now I'm seeing brick walls and buildings and I'm seeing dirty graffiti all over the place, and it's super cold. So I was having a little bit of a culture shock when I first got there. But my mentality was already like looking down the corners, who's approaching, etc. So I lived with this family for about maybe a year or so. I go to middle school in Queens. First of all, I ended up in Brooklyn, in Bushwick, probably Flatbush area, around Hemrod, between Wyckoff and Irving, during that area. And everything was fine or whatever. Then I started going to school and started meeting some of the other kids. And then it's when I started seeing the gang activity circling. And then I saw the block boys and I saw the corner boys making money, etc. And then I decided at that point, once I was in middle school up there, going into the high school in Queens, I decided to jump in with this rinky-dink gang. We used to call ourselves the Forever True Kings. It was a little gang that was associated there. And we were nothing, but it was my first time experiencing that. And then we got involved being confronted by these bigger gangs, the ones that I really got involved in. Mm-hmm. So they demolished us, and then we were absorbed, because that's what gangs do when they see other little gangs trying to come up. They don't try to kill us or whatever. They give us an option. You come with us or you guys got to disband, or we take you out, one of the two.
Yeah.
So I decided to jump in because I was very familiar with one of the gangs who was associated with my father back when he was young, And it all started from there. And at that point, I never went back from home. Who would have thunk a kid from Miami goes to New York and then all of a sudden now lives in the streets of New York? It's unheard of, So I jumped in and started doing my thing.
Let me ask you, when you get jumped in, you sign a contract, correct?
Yeah.
How old were you?
I had to be about 13.
13.
Around 13
that
years
contract,
old.
You see, I want to point this out because a lot of people don't understand gangs.
Oh,
like, for example, now we got the MS-13 and MS-18. And I tell people MS-13 are actually Satanists. They actually worship the devil. Wow. And a lot of people look at me like, come on, man, And and when I talk to them about gangs, it's the same thing. They're kind of like, are they that structured? Are they that organized?
We are organized. Yes.
They are super, super organized. You sign a contract.
You have no idea.
And that contract is signed in blood, correct?
No, not just blood, but before you can even come into the gang, whatever, you're a prospect.
Yeah.
First of all.
Yeah.
You're not just going to go into a gang. First, they look into you. They got to see who you are.
We used to go through the 6 days of hell. That's what they called it. Before you can ever even be considered to be walked in.
Well, with us, they gave us a bunch of information, where the gang was founded, who's the person, who's the person who founded the gang, what are certain codes, what are points, what are certain crowns, etc. And you had to know this knowledge from head to toe, and you were tested the day that you were, and then after the test, that's just the first part. After you were tested, then you were jumped in. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And you sit there with the president or whatever they call it.
Yeah, they call it president. They call it association. They don't call themselves a gang. They don't call themselves gang leaders.
Well, the president's comes from like Inca and all this other stuff. Right?
Yeah, some of that knowledge from the other gang.
Mm-hmm. And the reason they school you, they want you to know this knowledge is just in case you come across another member of a gang from a different chapter, a different borough, or you should find yourself in prison with the different types of gangs, and you are going to throw that set up, okay? You have to be able to back up what you're saying.
Yeah.
And the dots have to meet. So if I go to prison and I'm going to say, hey, look, I'm going to be such and such. Okay, well, come here. First of all, let me see your paperwork. They're going to look at my paperwork. They're going to say, well, who you're claiming? Okay, all right. Who's this person? What is this? What is that? And I got to know what to say.
Yeah.
Because I don't know what to say. It's on sight, know? They're either going to take me out or I'm going to confront me and I'm going to be in a very bad place. So they do this to protect their image and themselves from not just letting anyone just,
claiming.
pretending.
Yeah.
So After they take your social security number, they take your address, they want to know who your mother is, they want to know it's organized, where they want to know where you come from. So I guess for me, it's not only do they want to have this information, but if should you mess up, they have that on file. You know what I mean? You're in for life. It's blood in, blood out. And so,
and what caught my attention about this is that you make this decision
right.
at 13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So at 13 years old, you're like, yeah, I'm in. I don't have a family. I'm living in the streets. I need a place to stay. I want to make some cash.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, give me that contract. I'll sign it. I'll learn the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
But then 20 years later,
you're in trouble.
You're trying to go into the military, or you're trying to just live a normal life. And it's like, no, you're in for life.
Yeah, but don't get it twisted, bro. Don't get it twisted. There are gang members in the military.
Yeah.
Okay.
As soon as I said that, I was like, but I'm saying you want to do something away from them. You don't want to go to meetings. Yeah. That's what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, they want you to be a doctor. They want you to be a lawyer. They want you to be in the military. They want you to be a police officer.
So you're going to have that insight.
Yeah. I mean, they want that, but you have to go to meetings.
Right. And you have to do what they say.
You have to do what they say.
Yep. You have to do. Yeah.
Now you're a different person, and you're like, I don't want to do that anymore. I got a wife. I got kids. Mm-hmm. And they're like, no, you signed this contract.
And I was in that predicament.
And you're like, I'm 13, bro. Come on, man. What do you mean I signed the contract? I wasn't of age.
Right.
No contracts are valid, right? Until you're 18.
It doesn't matter to them.
It's just crazy. So tell me, you said you were in that predicament with them.
So, as far as that's concerned, I signed the contract. I got jumped in, etc. And then, like I said, I decided not to go back home. And from there, I started moving within the streets, and everything was fine. And, through the glory of God, I mean, whether I believed in him or not, bro, he protected me the whole way.
I believe that, yeah.
I never, did any heavy drugs. I never got shot, I actually did get shot once, but, I never got wounded to the point where I almost lost my life and et cetera. But, I thank God for protecting me along that road, et cetera. So, but there came a point where, I had, I got arrested and stuff like that. And that's where Norma comes into play, my mom, I found out she was looking for me. She found out that I was running the streets, et cetera. And at this time, it's already been several years that I was on the street. I'm trying not to go into too deep detail. It's hard for me not to.
Yeah.
It's different when we're talking off air than on.
I understand.
And when she found me, she did everything in her power to get me back to Miami. And I gave her an ultimatum. I said, look, I'm here in New York in Times Square at the Covenant House. I used to jump shelters. And I said, look, I have to go to court tomorrow. And I told her, and I was going to court for a gang-related rival gang fight that we were doing where, guns were involved, et cetera. So I was looking at least 2 to 5 years, and I told her, I said, look, I'm gonna tell you like this. If I go to prison or if I go to jail, I'm gonna stay in New York. But if by some miracle of God, this judge lets me go, then I'll come back to Miami. And without knowing what was going on behind the scenes, she was like, okay. She took that. And she was like, okay. I'm like, I mean, okay. It's a possibility I'm not going to be coming back, so you can okay all you want. Okay. Norma was like, it's fine. Okay. I didn't know that she had these connections behind the scene that would help me. She knew several people with her. So I go to court for this drug-related thing. And, and the judge asked me, hey, do you have representation? I said no, and someone burst through the door. Yeah, he has representation. Wow. And this guy comes through the door. He says, I'm such and such, and I'm here to represent Mr. Lazaro, et cetera. And, I have an offer for him, whatever. Well, that put a target on my back because the other guys who were involved were like, yo, we don't have representation. How does this guy get representation or whatever? So they were already thinking the whole snitch, there's something going on. He didn't say, and I was like, bro, I didn't say anything, bro. But I was a minor, then whatever. So turns out this lawyer actually turned everything in favor of the minors that were on the team and put all the gun charges on the other kids that were 18 years old and let the minors go. And I fell in that group. But the judge told me, here, you have an opportunity. You can go to Miami, fix your life, and go with this family, or you could stay here in New York and do this time. And, you know, I'm going to Miami. And everyone's looking at me like, oh, no, you know you're not. You know?
And Norma, just so I know you already said it, but she's your adoptive mom.
Right, right.
That,
she was an old girlfriend of my dad's back when I was young.
That's it.
And
yeah, just a girlfriend.
And she found out that, you know, I was in the streets and I was
Which
homeless.
is amazing. That's amazing. Because normally, you know, that's...
And the Covenant House has had, I guess my sister had a connection with the Covenant House as well.
The Covenant House, that's David Wilkerson's Times Square Church. Just to throw the Wilkersons in there. That's where
it was. I was in Times Square over there by the Port Authority.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
And that's exactly where I was at.
I've been there.
Oh, you have?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. So then somehow the Covenant House people told me, hey, look, you know, you have a call, et cetera. My sister said, you know, that's where Norma was looking for me, and that's how I got a connection with her.
In the process of all this happening, Norma converts at the church with us.
Yeah, she has a story of her own.
Yeah, which she's going to tell that later, but just so that everyone knows. She battled
with drugs and alcoholism and amphetamines and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
and thank God to this day, she's 100% clean.
Unfortunately, that was Miami in the 80s. So she had an experience with God.
Right.
And, you know, we've known Norma for many, many years. My wife just loves Norma to death. Yeah. I mean, literally, she loves Norma. One of her favorite people is Norma. Because there's no one more real than Norma.
Yeah.
I mean, Norma will tell you, you know, I finish preaching, Norma will come and be like, hey, Pastor, that preaching sucked.
You got to get her on here, bro. You got to get her on here.
I don't remember her ever doing that, but she's the type that would do that, you know? She'll never be like, hey, great sermon, you know, like people do politically. No, she'll tell you, hey, you got to do better next time. So she's as real as they come. And just by a miracle, you know, God had to be putting you in her mind for her to be wanting to bring you to Miami. I mean, you're a problem child.
Right.
You're coming back here and, you know, you've been in the streets. You're pretty much wild. I mean, you know, who can tame you? Who's going to tell you now you got to be home at 10 o'clock at night or 11? You got to go to church.
Yeah,
you know, she's taking a huge risk.
Yeah, she tried to drop that structure on me, man.
Yes, that's not going to happen right away. And so she was going to our church. She knows my testimony.
Right.
And I guess that she thought, you know, if anybody can connect with Laz, it's maybe Pastor Mario. So she brings you down. I remember the first times that you come to church with your sister. Right. You both came down. And I think she came a little earlier, if I'm correct. I don't think you both came first. Yeah. They came a little first, your sister. Yeah. And, you know, love her too. She's an amazing woman, you know. Haven't seen her in a long time, but, you know, I'd love to talk to her again.
You got to have her on here too.
You come to the church, and I feel like you pretty much connected and maybe felt comfortable. But you still got this hanging over your head because this gang is in Miami.
Right.
So what happens next?
So, you know, then after the whole court thing, whatever, the judge gave me an opportunity to come to Miami to do the time and et cetera. So of course I took the time at that moment. I packed up my stuff, and the next day the Covenant House and then they paid for half the ticket. And I think Norma paid for the other half or something like that. Got me on a bus and brought me back here. I didn't tell anybody I was leaving. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's a rule breaker right there.
It's right there. That's
a major violation.
Left me on the fence right there. Mm-hmm. But I said, screw it. You know, I'm just going to go. And then when I came, it was very hard for me because like you said, you know, they tried to lay the structure on me. They got me enrolled back in school. They were telling me that I couldn't leave, you know, I couldn't go out at night or she tried her very best to be a parent to me. And my problem was I wasn't used to having a parent. You know what I mean? You know, and that was rough in itself. You know, then she started taking me to church. That's when I met you for the first time. And I didn't want to be there. You know, I'm like, who are these people jumping around, singing this, you know, whatever. You know, my mind was on other things, you know. But, you know, slowly but surely, you know, God made a way into my heart. And, you know, like every diamond in the rough, you know, he started shining me, you know. Mm-hmm. And that's when I said, well, you know, I'm closed my eyes and I felt something, and I decided, you were preaching that day and you were doing the calling, so to speak, and you're wearing your cheap suit back then.
We was broke, man.
Yeah, but before that, I got to know you a little bit better because I used to play football with you every weekend with Ernie and some of the other people there too.
We had some serious games.
Yeah, that's et cetera. Mother, uncles and stuff, and we thought we were the Dolphins.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
We played tackle.
Yeah,
nobody plays tackle anymore. Unless you're like have pads on. But we played tackle, man.
I started to see how we got together as a family, and we started doing things outside of the church. Every weekend it was like, you're going to be there, and you're going to be there. And not for nothing, I'm maybe 300 pounds now. Back then,
yeah,
I used to run.
No, I know. You were a great wide receiver.
I used to run. I had them hands, bro.
Yeah.
So it was all that running from the cops, I think.
And the dogs.
Jumping them fences.
And the dogs, right?
And the dogs. And so I saw that, you were big. I mean, you were star quarterback. You know what I mean?
I was a quarterback.
You used to loaf that thing, and we used to have a lot of fun doing that. But then that's when I started building a connection. And then that's when I decided that I wanted to give my life to Christ, or I thought that that's what I wanted to do at the time,
Mm-hmm.
And you put your hands on me and you started praying for me. And I started like, okay, I don't know if I believe or I don't believe, but.
Because also in this gang, you have your own religion.
Yeah, but see,
that's another thing.
Well, I mean, as far as the gang that I was associated with, they didn't really involve themselves.
Yeah,
in
not so much, but the other one.
But the other ones, yeah,
that they were associated with.
Mm-hmm. So as far as that's concerned, while I was there, I was like, I don't know, whatever. So I slowly started giving in, but I had forgotten about my gang life for a little while, and I had forgotten that all this time that I gave my life to Christ, etc., they were planning on trying to find me.
Mm-hmm.
And after a while of me being down here, they did find me. That's when you opened up the over there in Attapata,
the gang church.
The gang church, or
the center.
I call it the center and gang church, whatever. But I had fallen back into the gang life during this time, but I had fallen back. But what I was doing is I felt bad, but I was also trying to bring some guys into the center to get them off the streets, etc. But I was still pretty much still running amok. So finally, like every bad thing, whatever, the life catches up to you. These guys, they came down, and they're like, hey, you didn't check in or you didn't check out. You know what I mean? Because I had an opportunity to check out and leave. If I would have just told them, hey, look, I'm going back to Miami or whatever, they would have worked with me. I just left.
Yeah, but then here you would have still been in.
So then they came down here and they were like, look, you're down here. We don't really have anyone working your section. So we're going to give you an opportunity. So they gave me an opportunity. And I used to run in South Miami, Attapata, Little Havana, et cetera. Whereas it came to a point where nothing can go in or out without my say-so during that time. But I really didn't want that. I wanted 100% out. So I completely decided to go AWOL. I said, no, I'm not going to, whatever. And that's where things got terribly bad. I was put in a position where my life was being threatened, and, people with big guns were trying to find me. And that's where at that point, I don't know where you were. You were nowhere to be found. I think you had closed up the center. Or something
I know that
happened.
you stopped coming to the center.
Right.
Because they found you, or yeah. And then they offered you that position. Mm-hmm. And I guess you felt guilty still coming to the center and doing that.
Yeah, I couldn't come back. I couldn't.
So you stopped coming.
But then you closed. There's something
Then
happened.
we ended up closing the center and doing it by neighborhoods.
Right.
Instead, because we had all these gangs mixing together. And, and we figured it'd be better to go to them instead of them all come to us. It was pretty. The center was pretty because the newspapers and the reporters and the news shows, and everybody wanted to come in, because this was a spectacle.
It was being recognized.
But in order to be effective, we felt we were more effective going to them than them coming to us.
It was crazy. City of Miami Police Department used to sit outside your door all the time.
That's why we shut down.
They used to sit down and watch us, and we used to be like, they can't come in here, bro. They can't come in here, man.
And we didn't give them permission to come in.
I do feel guilty because, sometimes when we were in there, even though you were doing good, we were doing bad,
Well, I knew this.
Some of the kids in there, we were bringing in weapons.
Well, this is what I told the police. I said, listen, these guys, most of them are not Christians. They're not coming here because they're Christians, ex-gang members. I said, most of them are leaders.
Looking for refuge.
Yeah, this is a place for them to come and hear about God. Oh, yeah, but, we want to arrest them. And if you're on our team, you got to help us. I was like, I'm not on your team.
They couldn't touch us.
In this sense, because your job is to get them put in jail, which I understand. Many of them need to be there. But my job is to get them not to go to jail and to get saved.
Right.
And so we couldn't mix it together,
Right.
And so eventually, because they wouldn't leave, they couldn't go inside our center, but they would park outside or park, if anybody was illegal, they'd ask them for their papers. They'd ask them if they had bench warrants, and then they come and be like, oh, you had a guy with a bench warrant. I'm like, so? It's like, these aren't these aren't Christians.
You looked out for us. You looked out for us.
I did.
A lot of times. And a lot of the guys to this day will be indebted to you for helping them out. And you did a lot for
Thank
us,
you,
and we appreciate that. But, one of the final straws that broke the camel's back is, I was, after leaving you, for a while, because I was going through my own situation, I didn't want to bring all that to the doorstep, So I went about my life, et cetera. And then, it was one night I was in one of the corners where we served crack and all that other stuff. And I went to go check on it, to go, hang out and provide some protection. And we got robbed, believe it or not. We got robbed by another rival group. And I found myself in a position where I was the first one that was confronted during the robbery. Car pulls up, 4 guys in the car. One of them asked me, hey, where's the bomb? And I'm like, what do you need? As soon as I said that, I turned around. One guy jumps out with an AK, the other holding handguns, whatever. And I was caught. But the bad part was all the other gang members that were there to provide help for me, they left me there. So they abandoned me. And I was upset that they did that. But at that point, they kept asking me, and I had no idea what the stuff was. And I told the guy, look, man, you just got to do what you got to do. But what's the crazy part is I closed my eyes and I got on my knees. And the guy, to show me that he wasn't playing, he let off a few rounds on the ground there, which I felt the heat of the bullets. Put the barrel right on my forehead. He said, if you don't tell me, then this is it right here. And I closed my eyes. And you know how we do. We try to make a deal with God, and that doesn't work, And I just closed my eyes like, thank you, Jesus, for everything you did for me, I'm not going to ask you for anything. Just protect me, And I closed my eyes, and I just started weeping. And when I opened up my eyes like this, they took off. Everyone was gone. I found myself on my knees in the hood, in the corner of the gate, in front of everybody, like wild. And I thank God for that, because he saved my life. And at that point is where I decided that I really needed to make a change. So that's when I went to my mom, Norma. I told Norma I needed out. I'm done, or whatever. And that's when they moved on to the other organization. I don't know if I could say their name, but the other Christian organization, who offered my mom that, look, hey, we could take them in, but this is a drug for men's. The
one that we talked about. Yeah, of course you can say it.
Yeah, it's
you know who started Victory Outreach?
Yeah,
oh, no.
Sonny Arkansas.
I thought you were going to say Teen Challenge. no, Teen Challenge is David Wilkerson.
No.
You're with Sonny Arkansas.
This was Victory Outreach.
Incredible.
They're from the West Coast.
Yeah, I've worked with them big time.
Yes, and the pastor was Francisco. He's a little Mexican guy down here. And the director of that place, his name was Braudio. He was a big Mexican guy with lots of tattoos and stuff. But he used to help drug addicted people get clean, etc. And they had a men's house in the Redlands in Homestead.
Believe it or not, I helped them start that program with Pastor John Rodriguez.
Yeah.
You know him?
Yeah, I know.
That was my dog.
I know.
Pastor John is crazy, man. Like crazy good though. Like
God's Anointed Next
just
Generation.
incredible.
That was the name of the group. God's Anointed Next Generation was like their gang.
Okay. I was with them when they were starting the program. I took them a bunch of guys because they didn't have any guys. They didn't know anybody in Miami, and they were from California, and so they were like really like Chicanos.
Yeah.
They would go to the black neighborhoods and the Latinos here in Little Havana, and people couldn't relate to them. So they were like, Pastor Mario, would you go with us? And I'm like, yeah, of course. And so I started taking them to meet guys that were on drugs. I took a lot of my old friends and different people. Great, great ministry, Victory Outreach. So glad that we're talking about them. You remember their testimony video that they made a movie?
Yeah.
You seen it?
They also did a play.
Okay, they used to do a play about the movie, but they had an actual like hour-and-a-half movie.
I think so.
It was incredible.
It's been years.
Yeah.
It's been years, but I know the play. They do the play with like cap guns and everything. It's like West Coast
real,
type of deal, like LA gangs. Well, so they put me in connection with them. So apparently, even though they had a church in Little Havana, they had a men's rehabilitation house out there in the middle of Homestead, deep into the
Which Little Havana is where I started with them.
Right. So I tell the guy, look, man, I'm not on drugs because I didn't really do drugs. I smoked pot.
Gang members usually are not drug addicts.
I told him,
it's not common.
I smoked pot, but pot was something that I can control. That I can go years without having to smoke. But I smoked pot and I drank a little bit, but I was never an alcoholic. I'm like, they were like, well, we normally take really drug people, and you can't be here unless you're, whatever. I says, well, then use me, use me, but I gotta hide because these people are gonna kill me. So they talked to my grandfather, Tony, or whatever, and they took all my stuff away, my ID, my car, everything. They stripped me of everything. They made sure I wasn't bringing anything into the house. And then from there, I started working with them. I became the driver of their bus, and I helped them open up a couple of churches like in Arkansas, in North Carolina, etc. And I also did translating from them where they used to preach. And you know how you preach and there's another guy? I used to do the Spanish part of it, believe it or not. My Spanish was terrible, but in those hick places, it didn't matter. But I did my best. And they hid me for 2 years.
Wow.
After 2 years, I was there. I came back from Homestead back to Little Havana. And then from there, I put my ear to the rails and didn't hear anything from anybody, and no one came to get me. And that's when I thank God started, thanking God for him doing his job with demolishing over time the issue that I have with being afraid to be out there again. So, I thank God for that, But, I got back, and now, I was able to get a job and go back to school and come back to ordinary life. But it's still tough, Well,
let's just give a shout out to Victory Outreach and Sonny Argenzini and this great work that they've been doing for so many years. To take you in for 2 years is a tremendous responsibility because there's guys looking for you. And if they find you there, they're not going to care who's there, you know? No. So the director of that specific program, along with the people, the staff that were there, they knew what they were getting to because Sonny Argenzini knows about gangs.
Right.
There's, to me, David Wilkerson, who passed a few years ago, and then Sonny Argenzini are the two people that I most admire in what gangs are all about. So believe me, when they knew you were a gangster and you were hiding, they had to have known.
Yeah.
Because they come from California.
Yeah.
Sonny Argenzini comes from California,
Yeah.
And so a shout out to them for taking this risk and sowing into your life. This is not something, and I want to tell you guys that, finding a person like Tony or Laz, my wife says Tony, I say Laz. And my wife says, he's Tony. I'm like, okay. But going through his life the way that we have, it's not one person that sows in order for this to happen, to get to where you are today. Just being alive is a miracle.
Yeah.
But so much more. You're way more than just alive.
Right.
You've come a long, long, long way. it's not just one person. It's a norma. You know, a person taking the
risk.
opportunity and the risk to adopt a child. I did the same thing. You know, my oldest son is adopted. Yeah. Except he wasn't, you know, as old as you were, so he didn't have you came with a lot of problems.
And you know, she stuck with me though, because, you know, she stuck with me because I let her down.
Oh, I can imagine.
I let her down.
You broke her heart.
I let her down in so many ways. You know, she brought me home, she brought me into her house, and I still went back to the games, and it's how strong a grip these things have on you, you know. But you know, I thank God that she at least she planted a seed in me, you know what I mean? And allowed me to recognize that there is a God, bro, that there is somebody out there that looks like, even if you're not Christian, if you're not Catholic, if you're not Muslim, if you're not whatever, you know, there's a universe out there, you know? And there's somebody, it's gotta be somebody big out there that's looking out for us. And I thank God that my mother, whom I consider to be my mother today, taught me right from wrong, even though it was at a late age. She taught me that the only way to have salvation is through Jesus Christ.
So you bring in, you know, Norma, and you bring in your grandparents, Tony and Lucy, excellent people, role models. I mean, Tony's a role model, bro. That guy is, he's a
tough cookie though.
And he's a tough guy, man. I remember in church, man, he was one of my deacons. And bro, that guy, he was by the book, man.
He's still involved.
Yeah, and he's still, I'm sure he is, great man. And then you add people like me that came in, and then you add, you know, people like a Victory Outreach coming in, and it's a collaboration of people sowing seeds in your life, believing in you even when you maybe didn't believe in yourself, not giving up on you even when you probably wanted to give up on yourself, seeing greatness in you when you didn't even see greatness in yourself. And God using different people and to bring you to this place. So I want to go to the last part of this because, you know, I know people that have run with the people that you ran with and have had identity changes. When you were gone those 2 years, I thought that's what happened. I thought that you went through an identity change.
A lot of people thought I died.
Yeah, the word out was that you were dead. I know on the street from the people I knew that I didn't want to tell anybody where you were. I knew you were there because your family told me. But I thought you went there and also changed your identity because you can't outrun this game. Now, tell us what happened and how you can be on a podcast right now. And I asked you, I said, I don't know if you want to say anything or how much. How do you feel comfortable sharing this right now?
Well, I mean, it's certainly it's hard not to. I want to get into so many more details, but I just can't. You know what I mean? And it's hard to tell a story when you can't really tell all the details. That's tough. But you know, the way I got out of it, you know, I mean, I got married, I got remarried. I stopped using Tony. You know, I started using my real name. You know, my wife right now refused. Her name's Jennifer. I love you to death, baby, Jennifer. And I promised I would give her a shout out. She refuses to call me by my name. I also have a nickname, which I'm not going to use.
Yeah,
here.
better not to.
And I stayed in my lane. You know what I mean? I got a job. I went to my community church. I tried to keep my nose clean, fix my license, do everything I can to stay out of sight, under the radar. And you know what? Till this day, whoever's looking for me, they no longer look for me as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
They either got to be dead or in jail, dude. But my thing is that there is a way out, dude. There is a way out. If you allow the people who are in the right places to help you, or you seek help, you know? Some of us, we don't know where to go, and we don't have the tools to be able to get out. There are people in your church, your local community, people like Pastor MC Mario or MC, Pastor MC, who are there. They'll get you out, man. They will, but you just have to put forth your effort, you know. And that's how I did it, you know. Time cures all wounds. In some cases, some people are waiting for you. It doesn't matter how long it is, but I thank God every day for, you know, putting that blind spot on me, you know.
I love a verse that says that basically when you walk with God, even your enemies will be at peace with you. So remember when I opened up the gang church or the center, I was in my enemy's territory.
You were.
I mean,
You were in a den.
Yeah. And the first day they showed up there with guns. My wife had my son Bebe in her arms. He was less than 1 year old. And they came there to kill us. And God told me, you're going to open up this center in enemy territory. And I was like, this is crazy. But then again, God asked you to do crazy things. And I just came to a point, I believe at that time, and I'm still there, where I'm just like, you know what? I'm not afraid. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the day that my mission is over, I'm going home.
Yeah.
And while I still got a mission to do, no one can take me out.
Nope.
I've had guns, put to me, and they try to, the trigger gets
jammed.
Yeah, jammed. I've had people shoot at me like this, and I'm like, I'm dead. I've fallen to the ground, and then there's no bullet. I'm not dead.
The blood of Christ, bro.
It's only Christ. All kinds of stuff has happened to me, and I'm just at that point, which I believe that's where maybe you are. That you're like, you know what? I'm not afraid.
No.
I trust in God, and I have a purpose and a mission. I look forward to partnering with you. We're doing a lot of stuff right here in the city of Homestead, and I've actually begun to tag team with the police. The police here is different. Times have changed. It's not the same as it was in the
We're talking about Homestead Police?
Yes, I'm talking about Homestead Police, but I'm yes, I understand.
You're freaking me out, Mario. It's okay. It's all right. I understand.
But they have a program in place where they allow us to go see the gang leaders in the city, guys that are on their radar, guys that are about to go to jail, and tell them, listen, the police wants you. The police is looking for you. They'd rather if you changed. They'd rather if you gave your life to God. And they're connecting me with these guys. It's just incredible. I've never heard of a program like this. So, I'm vouching for them in the sense that they have an idea that I believe can maybe take off. This could be like a satellite center. Oh, and we have begun to see crime go down here tremendously. There hadn't been a shooting here in a month, which is crazy, until I think just this weekend, I think there was finally a shooting. A city this size to have no shootings. I'm not talking about murders. I'm just talking about shootings for a month is incredible. So yeah, I am working with them. I'm working with the mayor. I'm working with the council. I'm working with the social workers, the schools. Everybody's coming there, the churches, to make a difference in this city. Wow. And I believe that we're going to take off. I want to partner with you in this, and I want to talk to you later. I believe that God brought you into my life twice. The first time was when you first came here from New York. And then the second time was when you came to the center, which you ended up stopped coming because you didn't want to bring that to the center, which in reality, everybody else was bringing it to the center anyways. That's who we wanted. But
what's funny is that I contacted you one time because I needed you out of the blue. Uh-huh. I needed you to help me with a driver's license issue. Uh-huh. And you came through and I was like, I can't believe this guy after so many years that I didn't see him. I don't know if I should call him, and I was like, I'm gonna call him. I'm gonna call him, and I've always loved him, and I always looked up to him.
I don't even remember that, man.
Yeah. And you said you actually you're the reason I'm on the road today.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I know you told me you drive. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And you're the reason. And since then, I cleaned up my life. Right now, with as far as driver's license, now I do. I'm an armed bodyguard. I do, ride share, everything on the side because I don't want to work for the man no more, bro. I want to work for myself.
Yeah.
And so it's because of you now, all my licenses that I have now, my security licenses, all that, I owe that to you because if I hadn't fixed that, which you got, you helped me.
I don't even remember.
Yeah,
this,
man.
It's crazy.
That was before we ran into each other at the house. I called you directly, and
wow.
I felt guilty. And
I have the same phone number that I had when you got here when you were 14 years old. 786-286-0199. That's the same number I've always had. Man, people call me 20 years later. They're like, I wonder if Pastor Forte still has the same phone. And they call me. I'm like, yeah, I'm right here, bro. And I talk to people all the time.
You used to have a 305 number, though.
Well, we had the church number. That's different. But my cell phone has been the same since 1992.
I know. I looked, and it popped up when I looked in my
it's still there, yeah, man. So I'm glad that I was able to help you. Like I said, I don't recall. There's so many people. My phone doesn't really stop ringing, but praise God for that, brother. And I'm sure that you are an inspiration to so many people that are watching us. And the way you were able to change your life, the way you were able to walk away from that. I mean, I can count on one hand the amount of people that have been through the abuse, the neglect that you did as a child, that you had as a child, and to be able to make it is just incredible.
And just be positive, man.
And be positive, because you're right. They might have made it, but they're like, everything is bad. Everything is negative.
No.
You know, you're not like that at all, man. So praise God for that. I just want you, to just pray with me for a second, man. I want to pray for anybody that might be watching.
Sure.
And I don't know how we should call this, but I don't know what the name of the podcast is going to be yet, but we're going to talk about that when we're done. But let's pray. Let's pray. Father, we come before your presence and we thank you, because I am sure that there are people that are watching this right now that have been inspired by this life-changing testimony. This is as real as it gets. This is the real deal. This is what gangs are really all about. And this is the way that you, if you're involved in that, or if you know anyone that's involved in that, can get out. And it's by making positive decisions and by growing your faith and saying, you know what, God, even my enemies are going to be at peace with me. I pray that this is an inspiration to you or someone that you know. I'm going to ask you to share this video with everyone that you know, because there's people that sometimes you can't even imagine that are caught up in gang violence. The gang that Tony ran with, you may not even know that they're gang members. And I pray that you would send this out and just let people listen to what the love and grace and mercy of God can do in one's life. We thank you, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen. Praise God. Thank you, Tony, for being on, man. I really enjoyed this, brother.
Pleasure. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been completely amazing. God bless you. We'll catch up soon. I got a whole bunch of other great stories that I want to share with you. One of them was from an ex-terrorist. I'm going to be filming soon. Praise God. So stay tuned. God bless you. And thank you.
Thank you.